Welcome to Lecture 2 in the unit of Hair and Fiber Evidence. This lecture is going to talk to us a little bit about fibers and fabrics and how they're made up. So at the end of this lecture, you're going to understand the structure of fabrics and also the difference between natural and synthetic fabrics. Let's get started. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about what fabric is and how it's made. So fabric is any cloth material that's made of fibers woven or bonded together. The fibers themselves are smaller, so you can think of them as almost threads, and these threads themselves are what's being woven or bonded together. If we could zoom in even further on those individual threads or fibers, we'd see that even those are made of many individual filaments, which are single strands of the material that are twisted with other filaments to make the thread or fiber. That's a lot of F's. So here's the summary. Fabric is made of fibers, which are made of filaments. So let's zoom in and actually look at this. So this would be an example. This whole square that you see in the middle of your screen is a piece of fabric. Zooming in, we can see that the fabric itself is actually made of these individual fibers, in this case, that are woven together. And then if you zoom in even further on the individual fibers, you see that they're not the end of it either, that they're actually made up of even smaller pieces, which are called filaments. And that's how it all works. So moving on, there are two types of fibers. There are natural fibers and synthetic fibers. If you know the meaning of these two words, then you're probably going to be able to figure this out pretty quickly. But here's the lowdown. Natural fibers are fibers made from any materials that are found in nature, animal or plant. Here are some examples of common natural fibers: cotton, wool, linen, silk, hemp, cashmere, mohair, camel hair, and bamboo. Now, just in case you're wondering, cotton, linen, hemp, and bamboo are all plants, and wool, silk, cashmere, mohair, and camel hair are all from animal sources. Synthetic fibers, on the other hand, are all man-made. So they're all things like plastics that are just spooled out into small threads, fabrics, fibers, filaments, etc. And that's what makes up the whole class. So these things are rayon, polyester, nylon, acetate, spandex, and acrylic. And there are some more that fall in that category too, but those are the most common ones. So the reason that we have two classes of fabrics and the reason you buy different types of clothes is because all of these different types of fibers have different characteristics that people use to make the characteristics of the clothes that you want to buy. For example, synthetic clothes are often really good at repelling water. They often don't wrinkle very easily. Natural fabrics, on the other hand, are breathable and just feel nicer, in my opinion. So down here at the bottom is a close-up of some of those natural fabrics, and at the end we have a man-made one, or synthetic one. So looking at this, maybe you see, just from kind of an overview, the wool, the fine wool, the alpaca, the cashmere, the silk, the linen, and cotton. Those are all the natural ones, and the polyester one over here to the right is a synthetic one. What do you notice about the differences between all these natural ones and the one over to the right? Think about that for a second. I'll wait. If you're thinking that that one over to the right looks awfully smooth and perfect compared to these ones over to the left, which look like blow-ups of things that you might actually find in nature, like plant stems and bark and hairs, well, you're right. Natural fibers look different because they come from nature. They're not perfect and smooth like the man-made ones. Here are some examples of microscope pictures of these natural ones again. So we've got cotton, we've got silk in the middle, cashmere over to the right, flax, which is coming from plants, wool, which comes from sheep, and then linen, which also comes from plants. So you can see again that they're pretty distinctive. They look messy, they look broken, they look damaged, some of them, and that's because they are. They spend most of their life outside doing things that animals and plants do, and so they're not going to look perfect, smooth, and like they've never been used. Synthetic stuff, on the other hand, looks perfect, and it looks like plastic because most of it is. So nylon, rayon, and acetate, here are some pictures of those, and you can see they look really smooth, they look really plasticky, and that's exactly what they are. And so really the only differences in these fabrics that you see when you look at synthetic fabrics, and they may not look the same, all of them, is the shape of the nozzle that's pushed out. A lot of times it can be the combination of these synthetics with more natural fabrics or fibers, and also different combinations of synthetics can make different characteristics of the fabric that you're looking at. So it's very interesting. If you ever looked at a clothing label, maybe you should. You'll notice that there are lots of interesting blends of these different synthetic and natural fabrics, and they all have very different characteristics. So just a little quick comprehension quiz, and there is another quiz that you can go and take on the Google website. But you should be able to describe the structure of fabric now. Remember, it's the 3 F's, and so if you can remember the 3 F's, then you'll remember the structure. And then you should know the differences between natural and synthetic fabrics. It's not a trick question, it's a pretty easy answer. And then you should start to get a sense now for what natural fabrics are going to look like under a microscope compared to your synthetic fabrics. And you'll get more practice in class when you look at them in a lab. And that's it for this lecture. See you in class. Don't forget to take the comprehension Google quiz to see how you did and that you took good enough notes during this lecture.